Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Your first question, who are you?
My name's Murray Heywood, and I am the drummer for the band UIC. And how deep do you want me to go? Who am I?
That's good. That's good. But you also got to say that you're. Why are you here? You're a dad.
Yes, I'm a dad. Absolutely. I'm a father of, I'm not only am I a dad, I'm a granddad. So I have three boys ranging in age from 38 to 24. And I have grandchildren ranging in age from 6 to 13. So I have four grandkids. So yeah, and my oldest grandson is also pursuing music. So he's a fan of mine, which you don't expect. He's more of a fan of mine than my kids are. But yeah, no, my kids have all been supportive. But yeah, so I'm a dad and a grandfather.
So
Absolutely.
you're a grand rad dad.
I'm a grand rad dad.
I
Exactly.
I think you're the second. You're the second grand rad dad we had. Tommy Chong, I mentioned, was the first, and so you're.
Well,
Oh, David was the first. You're the third. You're the third. There.
yeah. So, and I mean, Tommy's quite a bit older than I am, but the fact of the matter is, I started pretty young.
Yeah.
So, I joke about it, but my oldest son and me, I say my oldest son and me, we grew up together.
That's good.
Because yeah, because I'd been 20 for a month when he was born. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Do you consider yourself a rad dad?
Yeah, I think so. I think that anytime, like, I mean, my kids will probably disagree, but I do, doing this whole rock and roll thing and getting up and playing on stages and putting out records and doing what we do to get together to make it happen. It'd be easier not to do it. It would be way easier not to do it, but it's part of me, right? And so yeah, I guess in a sense I guess I'm a rad dad, not as rad as probably some of them, but some people, but I think I'm pretty rad.
With you being a granddad, do you consider yourself a grand rad dad?
Yeah, I think my oldest grandson, because I also do a lot of online stuff for my job, because I for my day job, and I'm a pretty good golfer, so I play on this amateur golf tour thing, and with the music. And so he's like, you got a lot of presence on YouTube and everything. He goes, that's really cool. I show my friends all the time. Look at my grandfather's like all over YouTube. So I think he thinks I'm pretty rad.
Is there a difference between being a dad and a granddad?
Uh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that I'm always there's similarities, but I think your role as a grandfather is not that your role as a dad isn't to be the encourager, but sometimes I think as the dad, you have to also correct and steer a little bit more than you do as a grandfather. You do as a grandfather by, I think, by your actions and through osmosis. Really, they see how you are, and hopefully that inspires them. Versus, I feel more directly responsible for directing my kids, whereas the grandkids, it's sort of an auxiliary thing, and so it is a bit different. Yeah, it's a bit different, but it's cool. Like, being a grandfather is absolutely a blast. You can get them all sugared up and then send them home. It's great.
So why is it such a blast? Like what makes it, aside from that joking aside from filling up full of sugar, what makes it so much better? Or not saying that it's better than being dad, but
Well, I think for me, I look at it and I see it's sort of a generational thing, where I look and I see, hey, I've now got four kids that I've you know sort of co-created in a way. Like I created this, I created that, and then they're going to have kids, and that really fascinates me. I'm a history buff, so I like to know where I come from. I want to dig deeper into where I come from. You know, I want to know who my great 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 grandfather was. You know, and I look at it, and so that's really cool to see that line's going to carry on, and I just think it's just neat because you just see yourself in them, and part of yourself, and you just love them to death because you just they're a part of you. They share your DNA. It's a strong bond. And just like it is with your kids and with grandkids, it's like it's a carry on of that. But for me it was interesting because I had 3 boys, right? So we never let any girls in, right? It was a boys only club outside of my wife, and then I have 2 granddaughters, and that changed me immensely because I'm a bit of a hard ass. You know, my kids they say I'm kind of like Red Foreman, but you know, which you know, I'm a bit of a hard ass. You know, when they're not towing the line, I'm a bit of a hard ass. With my granddaughters melted my heart. You know, like having the girl side of it. Just my granddaughters are like, they have me wrapped. You know, it is a big joke in the family that my granddaughters will have my credit cards one day because they have me wrapped around their finger, and there's a certain amount of truth to it. It's just that it was a softening of the heart because I'd had nothing to deal with boys, and girls are different, and how you deal with them is different, and their emotions are different, and so that's been a learning curve, but an awesome learning curve at the same time, you know.
Love that. I love that. It seems like you're super proud. And I had a
Oh,
really
I am.
close relationship with my grandfather who passed away a number of years back. So yeah, keep you know, from that perspective, being older, keep doing what you're doing with them. What are some traits you think can make one a rad dad?
I think that, I think that as long as you are always challenging yourself. I never wanted to be the guy, hey, trust me, I have my time in my lazy boy chair where I'm like a typical old guy watching sports. But I think to get out and do something different or to follow a dream, you know, or follow a passion, even you know, for me it was music. For somebody else, maybe it's sports, or for somebody else it's something else. But I think to not fall into that sort of I'm just going to get old, and I'm going to stop doing those things that you know made me happy. And I mean, I remember at one time, if you would have said to me, you know, that I'd still be playing in UIC at 58 years old, I would have said, "What, are you crazy? Like nobody at 58 years old is playing punk rock, right?" But the truth of the matter is that you know, like 60 is the new 40. You know, it's things have changed, and our fans have grown older too. So, you know, so it's still possible. And so I think just being a rad dad means that I don't care whether you get up and you go out riding your motorbike. I have a Harley too. So, you know, get out and go ride your motorbike or do something that defies the whole stereotype of what it's like to get old, right? So I think a rad dad, and I mean, you could be a rad dad. I'm talking about a rad older dad. Maybe I'm talking about rad granddad here, but because you can be you got to be a rad dad when you're in your whenever you have your kids, you know. And I think it's also yeah, just to show them. I think it's really about showing them that path that you don't have to ever stop chasing your passion or being passionate about things just because you're dad, right? You still have passions, and I think that's the most important thing. That's what I would think about being a rad dad is, are you chasing a passion? Do your kids see that in you? Because that's a teachable moment. That's something that's inspiring. If they see you at 40 or 50 or whatever, that something's really important to you, that you break off time to do it and to try and do it the best you can, and to pursue that. I think that's a really great lesson for them as they go through life to continue to pursue, even despite the fact that, I mean, I'm still pursuing it in a sense where it's still important to me. I don't make my living doing it, but it's still important to me. So I have to balance those things out. I have to make a living, and I have to make that time for the passion part of it, right?
I agree with that. And that's kind of like, you know, some of the bit of the impetus that we have behind doing Rad Dads and the show is like the idea is try to empower dads, right? And one of the kind of common themes you touched on, you know, you kind of said, you know, am I talking from a granddad perspective? I think it's just a really any, you know, granddad, dad, it's really a fatherhood type role. It's one of those common themes is following those passions. That's why we kind of reach out and kind of talk to people like you. It's like, yeah, they're still doing it, but also, you know, they're there for their kids, and they're modeling this kind of what we call positive parenthood or parenting. And so, yeah, you kind of summed that up, you know, quite nicely. And it's also try to, yeah, one of the reasons we kind of do what we do also is to try to dispel that whole bumbling dad, deadbeat dad kind of moniker, you know, that kind of pervades some of the popular culture, that dads can't do things, you know, they're kind of bumbling idiots without, you know, their help of their partner. And it's like, no, you know, there's a lot of pretty rad dads out there and doing all these cool things, and yeah, and you're just kind of testament to that. That's cool. I like that.
Well, and my dad, I mean, I look at my dad, and I was the youngest of 10 kids. So, yeah. So and my parents were like, you know, most people thought they were my grandparents because they were kind of older when I was a kid. And my dad was my hero, right? But he didn't have anything that was driving him, you know, and he was my hero ethically and in so many ways, but he wasn't doing anything like what I'm doing, you know, and so I never had that model to me, but my dad was still my hero. And I guess at the end of the day, I think every dad, I mean, wants to be their kid's hero in some sense, or wants them to look up to him. And I don't mean hero in a negative, narcissistic way. I mean, I want them to look at me and say, hey, that's pretty cool that my dad did that. Or, you know, and I look back and I say, you know, I made a lot of decisions about music and about what I was going to do with music based on the fact that I had a young family early, and I couldn't do some of the things that I would have liked to do, which would have maybe furthered my career. Like I couldn't go out and just tour incessantly. I couldn't just go out and tour and never come home, you know, because I had responsibilities. I had, you know, to make sure my kids were looked after, my bills were paid, and all these things. I couldn't just live out of the back of a van. And that's a commitment I made really early on, that family first. Like my kid was number one. And my first marriage failed. With my oldest son is from my first marriage, but I always stayed close to him and made changes in my schedule and stuff to make sure that I had time with him. And I think it's really important for dads to be that. I think it is important for dads to, like you said, don't be a deadbeat dad. I mean, the most important thing with me back then, even at that young age when I was a kid, I was really a kid, you know, I was in my early 20s, was that child support payment I made every month was the most important money I spent. And I made sure he knew that, right? So I think that's really important. And you can still, you know, it's going to change your course as it did mine, but you know, satisfaction comes in multiple forms, and I have no regrets of how, you know, maybe, you know, UIC could have done different things had that not been the case, but I wouldn't change any of it, because I have an awesome relationship with my kids, and I'm still playing music. Yeah, we never became the Ramones, or we never made $1 million. Actually, they didn't make $1 million until they died. But you know what I mean? We have our own little pocket, and we kind of had our own little thing going in the 80s where we had a buzz going about us, and at least in the Toronto and Ontario part of Canada scene, and it never really got outside of that, and that's okay. You know, maybe now is the time.
There we go. Maybe you go viral. I want to go back. So you said that your dad didn't really model that kind of that those passions and stuff like that. So then where did you get that? Where did that drive come from?
I don't know, to be honest with you, because I think what it is that being the youngest of 10 kids is a whole different dynamic. Because, you know, my mom was 43 when I was born, and she already had 9 kids, right? My oldest brother was actually married and had 2 kids before I was born.
Wow.
So there's a whole different dynamic there, because I was not coddled in a sense where, you know, when I'd fall off my bike and you know, and scrape my knee, and you'd start to cry, and then you're looking around, you're like, nobody's coming. It's, you know, suck it up, you know, just keep on. So I kind of grew up a little tougher that way, where we were really expected to do things on our own and have some independence, and so I got a path. My dad was not like, my dad got me playing drums. It's funny because my brothers had a band. I have my two brothers who are just older than me. One's 4 years older, one's 7 years older. They had a band, and it was the weirdest band ever. They had the accordion player and a Hawaiian guitar. Like, where do you get that instrumentation? Right?
Ukrainian and Hawaii. I don't know.
It's weird. And they would play everything from polka to bad CCR covers, you know. And so they had this band, and they were quite busy playing weddings and banquets and all this stuff. And my dad said to me one day, he said, you know, the boys really need a drummer. And I went, oh, yeah. I said, do you ever think of playing drums? I went, no. I was a hockey kid, right? I'm talking, I was 11 years old. I was a hockey freak. I would be on the ice, you know, 8 days a week. You know, I just couldn't enough. And he said, well, boy, do you want to play drums? I went, sure. I'll try anything, you know? So we went and bought a set of drums. I took some lessons, and I played with my brothers for a few years. Well, that kind of got boring, because obviously they were older. I was playing with older people, and all my friends were out doing cool stuff, and I was busy playing at weddings and stuff with old people. So that lost its thrill, and I stopped playing drums. And my dad was disappointed somewhat in that I quit playing. But and then fast forward a few years, and when I started getting serious about music, because I met with some mates, UIC guys, who learned how to do some bar chords, and I had already been drumming, so we put this band together. And my father didn't understand it at all, because to him, that music we were playing was like, what is that? That is like the most ridiculous music I've ever heard. So he didn't get it. He wasn't a big encourager of it. And he never really had anything like that he was chasing. So where did I get it? I don't know. It wasn't modeled from him. It was just, for me, and it wasn't really modeled in my older brothers either. Right. So it was really me to do the drastic thing. So when I said we're moving to Toronto, they thought I'd lost my mind, right? That, what do you mean you're moving to Toronto? Yeah, we're going to pursue this music thing. We're moving to Toronto. They thought we were crazy. And, you know, I get why they thought that. I mean, we were in a small little town in southwestern Ontario, and the Toronto was like another world for them. My parents had only been to Toronto once in their life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and we grew up on a farm. So yeah. So it was really at a young age. Even when I was playing hockey, my father wasn't even that interested in my hockey thing. It was like, you know, he thought that was kind of you know, wasn't really a big deal to him. And so at 7, 8 years old, I was organizing all my own hockey stuff. I organized what time I had to be at the arena, when I had an away game, how I was getting there, how I was getting to the arena. I was all on me. I had to coordinate everything. My parents were not in that at all. It was, they paid for my registration. The rest of it was all up to me. And I was doing that at like 7, 8, 9 years old. I knew exactly where I had to be at what time. And if my dad couldn't get me there, I'd walk with my hockey bag and to get to where I needed to get. Right. So, and I lived outside of town. I was on a farm, so it was challenging, but yeah, it was just the way it was, you know? So I was sort of self-motivated.
Nice. That's great. That's great. What are the most interesting aspects of being a dad?
I think the whole thing about being a dad is just, you know, that creating that version of other version of you, or sort of a offspring of you, and watching my kids grow. I mean, I was very involved with their sports. I was very involved with their everything. And then my kids are now, my two younger boys play music, and they've been in bands together. So just being, supporter, mentor, corrector. I mean, the whole thing is trying to get your kids. And I can honestly say that, and I'm very happy about this, that I turned out 3 really decent human beings. Where they go from here is kind of, they're on their own path now, 24, 26, and 38. I mean, I can only do so much now and support them and help them out any way I can. But that my work's kind of, in a sense, is done. It's not really done, because I can still, what I do and how I act and how I respond, and it's not always perfect. It's often wrong. And I have to correct that and apologize and stuff. But at the end of the day, what I can still influence them. But for the most part, we've got them to where we can go, and we've kind of pushed them off and said, go be a decent human being. Right. And I think that for me, that's a big thing. My oldest son is an awesome father. That's a big thing for me, that he's an awesome dad. And that makes me proud, because I feel I had at least something to do with that, right? That he's an awesome, engaged father. And my 2 younger kids haven't had kids yet, but I think that they're both going to be good dads as well. So for me, that's really about turning out good human beings, and having them be productive, decent human beings, productive to society, caring guys that are going to then mentor their kids to be the same, right?
Did you have any fears about being a dad?
Did I?
Yeah.
When I first got the news at 19,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it was like, what? Yeah, I was scared to death. At first, it didn't take long for me not to be afraid anymore. I had a lot of nephews and nieces. See, right now, I'm over 80 nephews and nieces.
Whoa.
Yeah, including great nephews and great nieces, and great nephews and nieces, right now. So it's crazy, right? So I had a lot of kids around me all the time when I growing up, because of all my nephews and nieces were around all the time. So I wasn't nervous in the sense of like handling a baby or anything like that. I mean, obviously, I was nervous about doing the right thing. And that's one of the things, and some people would probably find this lame, and that's fine. They can find it lame if they want. But one of the things that I was always proud of was that my grandkids or my kids at any age could listen to a UIC record, and there was nothing on there that I was embarrassed of or thought, oh, I can't let you hear that, right? That like we were not one for dropping F-bombs and doing all this stuff, and we were conscientious about that. And I don't think that makes you a rebel anyway, but or a punk rocker. Maybe some people disagree with me, and that's fine. Like I said, I have my own way of thinking, and that's perfectly well. But I was always proud of the fact that even to this day, my grandkids could listen to our first UIC record, and there's nothing on there that's off color that I'm not proud of, and that I would not want them to listen to. So that's something that was important to me.
Nice. Right. You can parallel that to the Ramones. Probably one of the most influential punk bands ever. I don't think I can't think of a song at the top of my head, where they swear. They didn't have
no, they don't. I mean, probably the closest place that we came is probably, a couple of our songs, like one of our songs on a live album called "Get Red" talks about getting pretty shit faced or whatever, and the Ramones talked about sniffing glue. This was probably where we crossed over, but for the most part there was nothing radically on there that I would go, oh, I can never let my kids hear that, because I think no matter how radical you are, and I guess there's probably people that don't feel this way, but I think you always want to protect your kids, right? You realize there's an age where that's probably acceptable and an age where it isn't. So I was always happy that we didn't have to make that distinction, that our songs were the way they were, that I didn't have any problem with my kids listening to it.
All right. Well, let's continue with that topic with UIC then. So current projects, you have a new album, FM Hill, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Want to chat about that? Brag about it?
Sure. I am proud of it because, I mean, UIC, we started in 1982 and we were a thing until like the mid 90s. I left in 1990 along with the other guitar player and formed another band called Positively Stompin', which was more of a, Steve Earle and the Dukes kind of meets Jason and the Scorchers kind of thing. And we signed to Vertigo Records, and we put out a really good record that we, did for a while, and then unfortunately the lead singer kind of went off the rails and that fell apart. But UIC kept going to like the mid 90s, and then I moved back to Toronto in the late 90s, and we reformed and called ourselves the Chickens for 2 albums. Two great records. But then that band disbanded, and then I didn't play with those guys again. And then all of a sudden, come 2016, we got, and I always felt like, we probably should have stuck it out. Even when I left in 1990, probably better things would have happened. We were just really frustrated in about 1990 because nobody was paying attention. Like no major labels are interested. That changed like 2 years later, by the way, when grunge hit and all that stuff hit. We just missed it, right? But we kind of bailed a little early, and so I mean, when you fast forward now to 2016, and we hadn't done anything for a while, and got back together on a whim to sort of do a thing for a friend who had passed away, and then we got back together on that, and we just said, hey, this is still fun, and we still love each other as people, right? Because we always stayed friends. I mean, there was no animosity when any of us left or when the bands broke up, and we said, hey, this is pretty cool. Let's and then we seen there was a resurgence in interest from people that were like, yeah, it's about time you guys came back and blah, blah, blah. So then we said, well, let's start writing some songs. And lo and behold, now we come out with a new record, and which I'm really proud of because it's actually, somebody said, I was doing an interview with a guy from Quebec on CKLR radio station the other night. And he said, a lot of times bands come back and they do a reunion thing, and it sucks. I went, okay, I don't know where you're going with this, but I'll hear you out. And he goes, this doesn't. This is like this could be your best album yet. And I go, I hope it is. That was the plan, was that we would make the best album. Now it's a little different. It's not as, it's not as aggressive maybe as our earlier records or whatever. There's some different feels in there because we've changed as songwriters and as musicians and everything. But I'm really proud of the record. It's still got that punk element to it, but it also goes in a few different spots, and it's kind of garagey and punk and all that stuff all in one. So we're really happy. It's the best produced album, like from production quality, that we've done to date, because technology's better. We had a bit more money than before. When we were making records, it was literally, it was tough making records on no budget. Now we kind of know more people, and we're able to make some deals and finance the record ourselves, because, we're a little bit more established now and got a bit more money. And so, yeah, we were able to put together a good record. So I'm happy with it, happy with the songs, happy with the production. Could it be better? As soon as you finish making a record and you say it's done, 2 weeks later, oh damn, I could have done that better. I could have wish we would have done this. And it's a constant thing for the next 20 years of second guessing yourself of what you could have done better. But yeah, happy. It's been getting a good response. I'm really happy with the record, and I think people will like it. It's a fun record. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's a fun record.
Yeah, I heard 3 tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's would you call yourself a punk band or more of a garage band?
I don't consider ourselves a punk band, not even by the stand. We probably more, a little bit more back in the 80s, but only because we played fast. I don't even consider the Ramones a punk band per se.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, I consider we were more influenced by the Stooges and the MC5, Radio Birdman. We were more in the Ramones. We were more influenced by that kind of rock and roll than we were by angsty punk. Like we were just never that mad. You know, we were never that angry at anything. I mean, I used to laugh and joke even back then and say, so though, are you a punk rock band? I go, oh, I don't know. You guys put us in whatever category you want to put us in. But I said, all I can say is that I don't consider ourselves really a punk rock band because we loved our parents, right? And we weren't that angry. So I didn't really think we were that, much of a punk band. But I mean, I get the whole where we got placed because the Teenage Heads, another band that were considered a punk band, they were just a rock and roll band. Yeah. And that's what I saw us as, and still do, is we're just a rock and roll garage rock band that things are raw and we record live off the floor. It's not super produced. We're not trying to have a hit record. We're not out there trying to say, well, I need to have this sound in this way and use all these tools in the studio to so it can be a hit. No, we just go out and make music and play rock and roll. However you want to label it, knock yourself out. So I don't really consider ourselves a punk band. Nice.
Couple more questions here. Do you have a dad joke to share?
A dad joke to share. Man, you're catching me off guard.
Yeah, this one does. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't have one. I probably should. You caught me off guard. You should have let me be prepared. I would have had a good dad joke.
I want to know where the nickname Houndog came from.
Well, I don't know. It actually started. Fred Robinson, the guitar player, started calling me Houndog. The only thing that I can attribute it to is back in the 80s, I used to love a blues artist called Houndog Taylor. Still do. And I don't know whether Fred just figured I needed another nickname. But he started calling me Houndog, and it just sort of stuck. And I really can't even explain to you why he started calling me that, but it was a case of, I believe it was because I was listening to Houndog Taylor and he just figured I needed a nickname. So away he went. And
Don't we all?
Yeah. And he didn't get a nickname. See, he was always on the first album, he made up a nickname for himself because as Fred, I go, Fred, if your name's Fred, you don't need a nickname because I've got friends that I call them Fred and that's their nickname. Their name's not Fred, but I call them Fred because that became their nickname. So when your name's Fred, you don't get a nickname because you don't need one. Right. Yeah. But where we grew up in a small town, everybody had a nickname. In fact, I know people I grew up with that I don't even know their real name, and I know them quite well. And I'd have to think about their real name. Right.
That sounds like my uncles, I kind of grew up in a small town for a little bit, just outside of Edmonton, and my uncles grew up there. And yeah, it's the same thing. It's endearing. I like that.
It is. And a lot of times your nickname transcends generations. So if your older brother's nickname was Bud, let's say, as it trickles down, you will get that nickname at some point too, perhaps, right? Where it'll be the same nickname.
My dad had the nickname Bushy.
Okay.
And to this day, my dad passed away 20 years ago, but to this day, I'm 40, turning 43 next month. I'll see people when I go visit my grandma and whatnot. If I see them around town, they're like, "Oh, hey, you're Bushy's boy, right?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I have a brother, older brother, who was a bit of a wild man, and his name was Rubber. His nickname was Rubber, And so I hear that all the time. Oh, you're Rub's brother, right? Rubber's brother. I go, yeah, I'm the youngest one, because I moved away at 22. So there's still people back there that I didn't really know, but now they know him. Over the years, they know him in a band, blah, blah. And they always go, well, where do you fit in the family? And I go, I'm the last one. That's why you don't know me. I left early. I didn't hang around.
Last question, Murray. Any words of wisdom to all the rad dads out there watching or listening to this?
Yeah, I would say just keep being passionate. Show your kids passion. Show them that it's okay to be passionate about something, and I don't care whether that's riding dirt bikes or playing in a rock band or whatever it is. I mean, I think it's important for kids to see passion, and I want my kids to be passionate about things, and so I would say be committed to your family, stay that way. Don't be a deadbeat dad. Your kids, being a father is extremely important. Kids need dads. It doesn't work with it. They need dads and moms. It doesn't work without a good father figure or a good male figure in a boy's life. I mean, history will prove that. And that's probably the wrong thing to say. I'll probably get hate mail over that, but I honestly believe that boys need a strong male presence, and that doesn't necessarily, that's not a macho thing. That's really just a realistic thing that, we need mentors, and we need good men and good women to be good mentors. So be a good person, be a good dad, do the right things, and you're going to screw it up. I screwed it up. Be willing to say you're sorry. That's important. Be willing to say you're sorry. Be willing to say I love you, and really keep pushing your passion. Let your kids see that in you. I think it pays dividends. My son, my youngest son has played in rock bands and stuff, and now he's sort of doing hip hop stuff where he writes in his room, and I like to feel like I both my two younger ones are very interested in music, and my wife is very interested in music. That's how we met. But I think that I push that passion to them, and that makes me happy to see them passionate about that. So be that, mentor to your kids, and I have to keep myself in check. Sometimes I can be the red foreman guy, but there's a balance there between encouragement and realistic, right? And I think that, yeah, just be the best dad you can be. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And I'm a bit older than some of the guys too, so I'm going to give you the old wisdom talk. Say you're sorry, and when you screw up, and your kids will appreciate that. And lead by example, lead with passion, do your thing. As long as it's moral and uplifting, they'll get something out of it. And I think it'll pay dividends down the road, right? I'm looking forward to being the great grandfather when my grandkids say, Grandpa used to be in a band, and here's his stuff on YouTube that you can see. You know what I mean? Like, that's the neat thing, is my great grandkids will be able to see their, I don't know. All I have is old black and white pictures of my great grandfather. They'll actually have video of me playing the drums on a stage and have records. That's cool.
Right. So cool. So cool.
Yeah.
All right, Marie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for chiming in with us and giving us your perspective on being a rad dad and a rad grandpa.
Well, the bigger question I have, and I thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. This is a neat kind, but really, I guess the jury's still out, because I can think I'm a rad dad, but that doesn't make me a rad dad.
Well, so you bring it like a point. So I always start out with that question, and I'm curious about that question. The reason I like that question so much is because I've seen both answers where, like you just kind of said, like, people are just owning it. So I love the fact that you just owned it, and that's kind of the point of that. It's like taking time to look and say, hey, you know what? I am doing a pretty good job. Yeah, I make mistakes, but overall, I'm doing pretty good. And I don't think we do that as dads, or even really maybe I could say men enough. We just kind of get focused on something, we do it, and we don't take time to really celebrate. And we also, the idea is, you know, I love you following your passions, is because it was kind of my experience growing up a little bit, is that, you know, the men around me didn't really follow their passions, or didn't kind of do that. And they kind of get stuck in these things. And I find it so important to kind of find something that you're really passionate about. Some people kind of call that selfish, and I don't see it that way. I don't see it as selfish at all. I see it just like you presented it, as being a mentor, a role model. You empower those people around you. And if you follow a passion and something that makes you really happy inside and good inside, then that's just like, you know, around you, everyone's just going to feel that. And it just makes everything around you that much better. And so don't apologize for that. And but also, again, on the flip side, you know, I've had you know dads on the show where they have younger kids, and they'll answer that question, well, you know, ask my kid in 30 years from now. And so, you know, you being older, I think you could kind of attest to that. Your grandkids showing you off to YouTube, you're pretty rad.
Yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, it's all about you know, people. I don't really care, never have cared what other people think. So if nobody else thinks I'm a rad dad, I'm all right with that too. It's what my kids and my grandkids think. That's number one with me. So if I'm a rad dad to them, then I'm a rad dad.
There we go. And you saying that you care what people think about, that makes you a punk rocker too. So we'll let you